Today's the day, people. Today's brand new episode of Doom Patrol Season 4. Of course, it's episode 12, Done Patrol. It's done. This is the end, the final chapter of this series. We have the series finale on our hands today, guys. I woke up, put on my Doom Patrol shirt, sat down to eat breakfast while I watched the series finale.
And it was just the most amazing, sad thing ever. And it was just so beautiful. And I can't believe it. Damn it.
It truly was perfect. I mean, I cried so much watching this, especially, man, that final scene. Like I had like tears throughout the episode, but that final scene, I was like ugly crying. Like it was bad, but like in the best way possible because I felt so many things here, and just this show means so much to me. And while I'm sad to see it end, again, it just had such a perfect ending here, and it was a long episode. It was like 53 minutes long. Um, and I enjoyed every single second of it. It was fantastic. So guys, of course, I'm gonna get in depth with spoilers here, so go watch this episode as soon as possible, please. Don't be spoiled. There's so many huge surprises here in this episode. It's fantastic. Go check it out. Again, this is Doom Patrol Season 4, Episode 12, Done Patrol. So we open our episode, of course, kind of wrapping up the season-long story with Immortimus, not Immortimus, but Immortus, and of course, we got our Doom Patrol. They come out of the time stream, and they have to fight Isabel, aka Immortus, and then the Butts show up, and it's a very quick battle because it ends up turning into the Butts singing, and then Isabel loving that because she loves a good performance, and then she starts singing, and then they meet each other and they fall in love, and then another portal opens up, and then they all get sucked in there, and the whole building is sucked into that time stream, and yeah, so that's kind of what ends up happening there. So that was quite interesting for sure. Um, so that's kind of our conclusion there. We do get the return of Isabel a little bit later when she restores everybody's longevity. So that was really cool to see. Everybody gets their longevity back in a really disgusting way, though, because of course it's a bag of toenails that if they eat it, then yeah, they'll get their longevity back. But it's a disgusting way to make that happen. But yeah, Jane goes back to being youthful. Cliff, his Parkinson's is gone. Larry, he's not dying anymore. So they get all excited and they're like, okay, we're going to go bring this longevity up to Rita. And we just, Rouge is the one that is going to take it up to her, and we just hear her scream. And at first I was thinking like, oh, it's supposed to be a joke. It's going to be something like, oh, Rita got her longevity, and then like she's screaming because like, oh, she still has one wrinkle or something like that. Like I thought it was going to be a funny joke or something like that, but no. Um, Rouge got up there and Rita was already dead. Which I was not expecting, but obviously it makes sense. She was old. She was the oldest of the group. And obviously she wasn't even in last episode. The episode before that, she was out of commission. She passed out. She wasn't doing too well. And they had like one kind of final together family team dinner right before that. But then Rita died. She passed away. And again, just a really heartbreaking moment there. Um, and again, also that just scream of pain from Rouge was excellent. Fantastic acting from everybody in this episode, particularly during this moment. And the whole team is like, okay, well, death really doesn't mean much in this show because like they've all died before and they've come back to life. So they're like, all right, let's go into the afterlife and let's rescue her and let's bring her back to life and all this stuff. So, they go back to doing, of course, back in season 2 when the whole team died. They try to do that whole ritual. So they're like, okay, we got to go find something that was close to her, like a personal belonging. So Larry goes downstairs. Of course, he starts looking through all the alcohol because that's most of what she did on this show was drink. And he's looking through it and asking Key like, oh, do you sense her on any of this? And then her ghost appears. And we get this beautiful conversation between Larry and Rita, and I talked about this a couple episodes ago when we got that beautiful moment between the two. I just love their relationship. It's been a fantastic friendship throughout the series, and to see these kind of final moments between the two has been excellent. And obviously the team, they don't want her to die. They want to go back and they want to save her, but she's ready to move on. She's ready to rest, and they end up having one final team meeting, and she tells the rest of the group that yeah, she's ready to move on. She feels like her duty as team leader has been completed. Her duty as team leader was to not necessarily lead them as a superhero team, because obviously that didn't work out very well, but her what she really was setting out to do, and she didn't even know it, but what she did was set everybody on a path for their next chapter. And this is where the Doom Patrol is officially disbanded. The team breaks up and everybody is now going to go their separate ways. So Rita is dead, and she gives them one final team assignment, and she wants them to burn her body. So we get this beautiful funeral for Rita. Um, Again, just heartbreaking. They're burning her body. Everybody's in black. Jane is singing. It was really great to see. And also really cool that like her ghost was there too. There were some funny moments, like her body kind of like blowing up into a blob again. Um, but then eventually she fades away, and that is it for Rita. Now, we do get to see her return later in the episode. We get to see her, um, in the afterlife, but we'll talk about that a bit later on. Let's talk about some of our other characters. So we have Jane. Jane is in this episode, well, actually, last episode, we saw that she kind of became one with all of her personalities. All the personas from the underground are now one. And she said, I am the kaleidoscope. And in this episode, she basically says that because she's not just Jane anymore, it doesn't make sense to just call her Jane. So she talks about this kaleidoscope thing and says that that's a word that she just keeps hearing in her head. So she's like, okay, just call me kaleidoscope. But I mean, I feel like it's a bit of a mouthful. So then Vic, of course, being Vic, is like, okay, well, what about Kay? So she is Jane no more. She is now Kay, which I think is fantastic. Um, and we get this great moment at the end of the episode with the return of Casey, which was really cool. It was really surprising for me because like I can't believe, like I was just so in the moment thinking about these original characters that I completely forgot until she showed up. Like, oh, Casey's here too. Like that was a big cliffhanger. Like we never really saw what happened to her. Also, we never got to see Dorothy again, but I mean we saw her a couple times throughout the season. Um, that would have been cool to see. But Casey returns, and they get their happy ending. Kay now wants to kind of she was looking for a new place where she can just go paint, which I think is a really cool reference because of course I believe back in season 1 she was painting quite a bit, and we haven't seen that in a while, so she's going back to painting. And then she meets up with Casey, and Casey's like, oh yeah, the spaceship was here, nobody was using it, so I figured I'd just go into space. And then Kay is like, oh, is there room for one more? So they are going to space together. They share their first kiss. They got a cat together. Kay is painting. Life is great. Life is fantastic for them. So I love that. That was really great to see. We have Madame Rouge, aka Laura Demille, and she was interesting in this episode. Obviously, she's been fighting her demons of the past, and in this episode, she has a great conversation with Cliff. No, not Cliff, but Vic, where she's kind of talking about the gray of a person. Like, not everything is all black and white. She's talking about, is a person really truly good or bad? So she basically decides that she's going to be kind of in between. And our final moment with her in this episode is her going to the ant farm and burning it all down. She walks in with a flamethrower and is like setting everybody on fire. So definitely a little bit evil, a little bit bad, tapping into her darker roots. But obviously the ant farm is a bad place too. So it seems like she's while everybody else has kind of given up superhero life, seems like she's going to try and continue superhero life, except more from an anti-hero perspective, which I think is really cool because I wasn't really sure where they were going to go with her, but I really enjoy this path that they took. Now, speaking of Vic, Vic, of course, here, he saw his future in the last episode. He is going to go and work with Derek with the Detroit Robotics Club. He is Cyborg once again. He also has these interesting kind of markings or carvings on his robotic forearms that Cliff was kind of calling kind of like robot tattoos. And they're just like little emblems. One is for his parents, one is for the city of Detroit, and the other is for the Doom Patrol. So a really great, beautiful ending for him. And in his final scene, he's with his robotics class, and one of the kids asks, like, "Oh, shouldn't you be out there kicking butt and all this stuff?" And he's like, you know, "What you guys are going to be doing here will save more lives than I could ever save out there fighting bad guys." So a great ending for Vic. I love that. And then we got Larry. Larry, again, we got that fantastic moment with him earlier with Rita, all of his goodbyes to her, but then he decides it's time for his own love. And that was one of the things he talked about with Rita, actually, was you're the only person that's really loved me, or something like that. And it was, again, just really touching moment. But he goes back to his room. He's packing stuff up. He finds this little red scarf, which gives him a flashback to his first love, his first true love. I think his name was John. Back when he was in the Air Force. And so we get flashbacks from season one, and that was great to see. That little red like scarf handkerchief thing was in John's pocket. Um, and so he kind of just remembers him, and then it kind of makes him think like, okay, what about my current love? What about Rama? What about 104? And he's like, oh, he's gone. And then Keeg is talking to him, and Keeg basically tells him that he's still out there. And they're like, okay, let's go find him. So they go find him. He dives into the ocean, and just as Rama said, he was going to turn himself into a lead block, and he grabs the lead block. They fly up into space. He basically opens the block and expands him, and Rama is back. And they get their happy ending. Larry's bandages fly off, and now that he's in space with Rama, they can be happy together without the bandages. They can love each other. They share another kiss, and they have now become kind of the new sun, which is what was described in the last episode that was foreshadowed there. I still don't know exactly what that means, but either way, it's really cool. I mean, we get a really happy ending for those two. They find their love, and of course, speaking of love, we also, like I said, we have Rita in the afterlife. Suddenly this bird lands on her shoulder, and we get to see her reunited with her love, Malcolm, which was one of my favorite parts of last season, season three. So it was fantastic to see him back. They're back together. They share a kiss. They share an embrace. Um, Rita's ready to rest, and she's living her happily ever after with Malcolm in the afterlife. It's beautiful. Again, it was just a really great, fantastic moment. And finally we have Cliff, which again, this is the one that really got me here. Um, and I'm glad that this is the one that we ended on. Our ending shot was of Cliff, and I love this choice because Cliff was our entry point to the series. So to end it off with him, I think is perfect. So he gets in his car, and of course he drives off. He shares one final moment with Kay slash Jane, flipping each other off. So that's great. He goes to Florida. He gets to see his grandson. He gets to hold his grandson. He gets to celebrate his grandson's first birthday. Um, Everything's going great. And then he is taking Rory outside to his car, and he's basically giving it to Rory as a gift of like, oh, grandson and grandfather, we're gonna work on fixing this thing up. And then he freezes up again. So his Parkinson's is back. Unfortunately, his longevity toenail thing did not help with that. But this is where he kind of comes to the realization that I didn't come back to Florida to live. I came back to Florida to die, which of course is really sad, But it's not as sad when Clara and him are working on the car, and then this little crystal thing that Isabel gave to him halfway through the episode, and she was like, "Oh, you'll know what it means eventually, when the time is right," or something like that. It's hanging on the mirror. He looks at it and he sees Rory's future, and we get this again, just beautiful moment. I've said it so many times in this episode, in this video. Beautiful, just because everything in this episode is beautiful. It's this beautiful moment where we get to see Cliff gets to watch Rory grow up. He gets to see his whole life. He gets to see Rory learning to drive. He gets to see Rory going to the prom. Rory getting married, having his own son, having his mother um die of cancer, it seems like. And I also love that in this the kind of middle age, the oldest version of Rory that we see here is actually played by Matthew Zuck, who huge shout out to Matthew Zuck and Riley Shanahan, because they actually play Robot Man and Negative Man. A lot of people don't really know that, but yeah, obviously Brendan Fraser does the voice of Robot Man, and Matt Bomer does the voice of Negative Man, but because those characters are masked, uh, Matt Bomer and Brendan Fraser are rarely on set unless it's, their actual faces need to be shown. So Matthew Zuck plays Negative Man. He's the one under the bandages, and Riley Shanahan is the one under the Robot Man suit. So we get Matthew Zuck, who plays Negative Man. Interesting why it wasn't Riley Shanahan, because he actually plays Robot Man. But still, nonetheless, it was really a great cameo, and I loved that. That made me tear up even more. Where we get to see him as this older version of Rory, um, just having his life flash before his eyes, and the kind of the ending to this montage is adult Rory getting to meet his grandson, and then that of course connects to um, Cliff getting his flashbacks to meeting his daughter Clara for the first time, and then going all the way up to present day where he is now with his grandson Rory, and so really all Cliff ever wanted was to right the wrongs of his past. He wanted to be a better man. He wanted to be a better father. He's gotten that, and now he wanted to be a better grandfather. Throughout this whole season, it's been that he wants to see his grandson. He wants his grandson to be the first thing he touches. That's why he's been wearing this oven mitt, and he wants to see his grandson grow up. Now he's come to this realization that he's dying again, but he just got to see his grandson grow up, so he got his final wish, and just his final moment here, he has a beautiful, really depressing final line, but again, it's also just fantastic because it's heartbreaking and just perfect and fits this character so, so perfectly well, where he basically just says that he's home. He's that's exactly what he says. He says he's home, and then his eyes shut off. Robot Man shuts down, and the series comes to an end. And again, what a perfect ending to this series. All these characters had perfect endings. I loved it, and again, I love this show so much. It just meant so much to me. This is one of my favorite series of all time. I never knew the Doom Patrol before this series, but I just so quickly, so easily fell in love with these characters. This is one of the best shows I've seen with an example of character development. Character development is the core of this show. And I just love it so much. I have so many fond memories of watching this show, and I would love it if you guys could share in the comments below your own memories of this series, how you will remember it. I do want to close this off by reading a quote from an interview with the showrunner of the series, Jeremy Carver, where he did an interview about today's series finale. You can go check it out on TVinsider.com. But he was asked, how will you remember Doom Patrol? For me, it was quite simply the most rewarding creative experience of my time working in television. It was an extraordinary world that I was gifted. When they asked if I wanted to take on the show, I had never even heard of the Doom Patrol before it was brought up to me. 4 days later, I had read a bunch of it, and I said yes. And the idea that we were able to find such a talented, diverse group of artists, from the writers to the cast to the crew, who were willing to take that ride and really embrace everything that was sort of weird and wonderful about Doom Patrol, and to find that partnership in the studio. And we were at two different networks over our run, and they gave me and us a level of artistic freedom that I can only hope for in incoming projects. It was a magnificent experience. End quote. Um, yeah, perfectly put there by Jeremy Carver. Just what a wonderful, magnificent experience this is. And thank you to Jeremy Carver. Thank you to the entire cast and crew of this series. Doubt anybody from the show is watching this, but if they are, thank you. Thank you so much. This show has meant so much to me, and I know it has meant so much to so many people. I know it hasn't been a super widely popular DC series. Most DC fans don't even watch this, but the ones who do, we truly love it. And I'm going to miss it, but I leave it knowing that these characters, they all had their own unique endings, and even the ones that died, they got their happy endings, and that makes me happy. So this is a long video. This is the longest review I've ever done for Doom Patrol, I think, but it was a long episode and it was a lot to talk about, and again, I loved it. So that's it, Doom Patrollers, for this version of Doom Patrol. Who knows, maybe we'll get more Doom Patrol in the future in the DCU from James Gunn. Who knows? But this is it for this Doom Patrol series. Again, it was perfect. So, Doom Patrollers, again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about this series finale? What did you think about the series as a whole? Share your memories, thoughts in the comments below. And thanks for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button so I keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the DC life.